My first TV show here of the new year here, folks, and it comes from Apple TV Plus, here on Rich Reviews. Folks, welcome back to Rich Reviews, and my first TV show of the new year that I want to read for you guys here now is called Visible Out on Television. It tells you the history of the LGBTQ community since the inception of television. And if you care to know, there's a 1995 film called The Celluloid Closet, which tells you the history of the LGBTQ community in film. And these episodes range from 50 minutes to about an hour and 12 minutes, and they have contained numerous footage and interviews from the likes of, Janet Mock, Wilson Cruz, Dustin Lance Black, Wanda Sykes, Rob Reiner, who isn't gay, Billy Crystal, who isn't gay. Just a wide variety of interviews that you guys have to bear witness and hear. Basically, there are 5 episodes, as I state, and they're all directed by the same guy, but they're narrated by 5 different people. 1 is narrated by Janet Mock. I have not seen Posse, so please don't kill me. 2 is narrated by Margaret Cho. I have not listened to any Margaret Cho stand-up. The 3rd episode is narrated by Neil Patrick Harris, and I think Neil Patrick Harris is fine. The 4th episode is narrated by Lena Waithe. I have not seen Master of None, so please don't kill me. And the 5th episode is narrated by Asia Kate Dillon. I have not seen Billions, so that's not my fault. And some of these episodes interlap with several different episodes here. They go back and forth. And let me just say right here, right now, I think the first 3 episodes are some of those to-the-point episodes that I think I've ever seen about television in one particular study. The last 2, I think, meander, although I think the final episode gives sort of a closing argument statement about where we've been and where we're going. In the first episode, which is called The Dark Ages, I won't be telling you the names of the other episodes because I don't think that's necessary, or tells you about the inception of television and how the first mention of homosexuality was at the McCarthy hearings because Joseph McCarthy was railing against everything. And basically there was a belief that, homosexuality was reviled, and if homosexuals in the government were discovered by the communists, they'd be blackmailed into working for the communists, and therefore they'd be considered traitors. People obviously lost their jobs during the Lavender Scare. Anytime they were to show homosexuality, the lesbians got the real bad shrift here when they were portrayed as killers, and basically homosexuals were mocked, to be told they were scared of. Most episodes ended tragically. Obviously, in the 60s, there was a CBS report called The Homosexuals that Mike Wallace famously interviewed people for. And obviously, Mike Wallace later on sort of repudiated his involvement, saying that he should have known better. And there's a famous doctor in here. His son is interviewed here because guess what? His son was gay. And obviously, he was having gay experiences in his bedroom while his father, who believed that homosexuals could be treated, he was doing those things in the basement. And basically, Dustin Lance Black, who was interviewed, did a show called When We Rise, and basically the father and son's interactions with one another were actually portrayed in that show rather accurately. Basically, this episode sort of ends with this American family about how this one son of the family was obviously, he didn't necessarily say he was gay, but clearly he had feminine tendencies, did indeed get AIDS, but he didn't show really any symptoms of that, and then died till the early 2000s. Also attempted to show that sometimes big-name stars were able to get shielded from the networks because even though it might be an open secret that they're gay, like Raymond Burr, and Raymond Burr's significant other is interviewed, and how he basically said, oh yes, whenever we were at parties, I had to be introduced to someone else that he's associated with. And also episode 2, we deal with, transgenderism to a certain degree, and how basically transgenderism was, basically they were portrayed as killers more or less, or the only sort of semi-positive thing you got out of transgenderism was Christine Jorgensen. To say this about transgenderism is basically, if you really wanted to do this professionally, you had to go to drag shows. And Milton Berle is shown in one episode in drag, and then years later he gets put down by RuPaul. And how basically we were also introduced to, All in the Family, how that sort of addressed stuff, and how the wife was sort of viewed as the angel. basically Archie Bunker was not viewed all that positively sometimes. And also, let me just say that the second episode sort of begins and ends with the Harvey Milk situation and how Harvey Milk rose to prominence, then gets assassinated. Let me confess I wasn't the biggest fan of that Sean Penn film, but how basically in the second episode, the homosexual community managed to get their stories out on television. A Certain Summer with Hal Holbrook and Martin Sheen. I think that film is out on YouTube if anyone ever wants to take a look at it, and how it's sort of the first attempts to portray homosexuality in sort of a positive light. And then there's also a lesbian film of Jill Clayburgh or something like that. I don't recall the name, sadly. And Rob Reiner is then interviewed here telling you the list of rules that you can say about homosexuality when dealing with people themselves, and it's, hey look, it's not the greatest thing in the world. And then episode 3 deals with the AIDS crisis in general. An early Frost with Aiden Quinn as a guy who's closeted, has to tell his parents, and they react negatively to the fact that he's gay and also has HIV. The gay community embraces Golden Girls. I never really knew that. And certain survivors of the AIDS epidemic, they look back on the footage and realize, wow, we have survivor skills, or it's just there are a whole bunch of ghosts in our closet. Also, I never watched The Real World. That just happened to escape me. Also, we do get My So-Called Life, and that's also a show that escaped me. Although we do get Wilson Cruz, and apparently one episode reflected his real life and the fact that yes, he came out to his parents, his father reacted badly, and he kicked him out of the house. And of course, in the show, he got kicked out as well, although he and his father sort of reconciled later on. And also, Ryan Phillippe started as a gay teen on a soap opera, and his Christian school was not exactly pleased with that. The first 3 episodes, I think, are so tightly constructed, and I feel like Michael Douglas is there talking about Liberace and how he will eventually, betray Liberace on Behind the Candelabra. And episodes 4 and 5, I think, again, outside of certain segments involving Ellen in episode 4, and we all love Ellen now, but that wasn't necessarily the case because after coming out, there was a backlash, and there are always backlashes to the LGBT community. We got Anita Bryant at one point, and when you're exposed as a bigot, your opportunities dry up. Basically, the Christian right came after Ellen. Ellen went away for a while. Basically, she got a talk show, and I don't find Friends funny. I don't find, Will and Grace to be funny. I mean, granted, I might give them the L word, but then again, at the same time, that really brought Jennifer Beals back into popular consciousness. I never watched the channel Logo, which deals with black gay issues and how that also happens to affect the black church community because there's certainly a stigma there. And then episode 5, I think, deals with the finer points and deals with the closing arguments of who we are, where we're going, and how yet so far we have to go, because it does deal upon the lesbian kiss episodes from the early 90s and how that was just to attract ratings and not do anything else. Well, I think there was that one lesbian romance from Now and Again, or Once and Again, I forget the show's name, and how finally Wilson Cruz was able to get same-sex attractions in Star Trek, and how Star Trek for a very long time just could not figure out a way to deal with social issues. Hey look, Mr. Sulu was gay and he couldn't be himself. Also, we're dealing with the kill your gays trope and how basically, or how the fact that transgender people cannot get the appropriate roles. With transgender people, you're either a prostitute, you're a killer, or you're a suicide victim. And how Laverne Cox was just finally happy to get a role, or Janet Mock was finally happy to get a role. And they can finally tell what matters to them, to their community. And also the last sort of minutes here delve into the nightclub Pulse shooting and how Anderson Cooper basically said, I'm not going to name the shooter, I'm just going to tell the names of the people who were shot and what dreams they had and what they wanted to do with their lives. And again, am I the world's greatest authority on sexuality in the human heart? No, I don't really know what non-binary is. I don't claim to know. If you know, please Tell me that in the comment box below. There's a lot in here that I'm leaving out because I think you should be watching this show, because it's quite frankly, Billy Crystal was playing a bisexual character in a 1980s soap opera. That's fascinating in and of itself. I know at least one person who says in this thing, if you're a bisexual woman, you're playing the field, but if you're a bisexual male, it means that you're just in denial of the fact that you're not accepting that you're gay. So I would highly recommend everyone here watch Visible Out on Television. So folks, Visible Out on Television, have you seen this? What did you think? Please put everything in the comment box below here, folks. I'm on Twitter at Michael Rich Reviews too. As always, folks, like, comment, subscribe, enrich yourself with knowledge. I'll see you next time, folks. Yes, hooray.